First quiz unit 3, we're going to be graphing some quadratics with lots of other info, but everything goes together with these. So as we have done before, we're going to take one more peek at what our vertex form is and what that means for us. When we're doing these, basically, the only part I want out of this, at least at the start, is to figure out what my vertex is. And the biggest part of that is remembering that when I go to write them down, it's not 1, 2, that's close, half of that would be right, opposite of H. So opposite of what's in the parentheses. So negative 1, 2. Okay, so now I got 1 point right in my graph. Next thing I want to look at, what's my A value? Because my A value is going to tell me if my parabola opens up or down. Okay, this opens up because my A value is positive. So I know a couple of things. Now at this point, I've got a choice on how I want to get the rest of my points from my graph. We can do what we've been doing here with some of you and make a little chart here. And when I make that chart, I can stick my vertex in the middle. And we've spoken about how once I know where that is, I want 2 points to the left, 2 x values to the left, negative 2, negative 3. And I want 2 x values to the right, 0 and 1. And that I don't need to substitute all of these. I just need to know one of the ones that's dotted, one of the ones that has a triangle next to it. So if I want to go to the calculator here, I can. Now I think this is easy enough. I can handle this on my own. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4 plus 2 is 6. That covers me on both of those. And then I love 0. 0 makes life easy. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 squared is 1 plus 2 is 3. Now let's say, gets to be the quiz tomorrow, I'm feeling good going in, and all of a sudden, I get to the quiz, and I remember the vertex, and then I don't remember any of this other chart stuff, any of the other stuff. Is all lost? No. I'm just going to go to y equals. I'm going to type the expression in. I'm going to go to the chart, and I'm going to go get my vertex in the middle. Because we remember that when we're doing these, if I get my vertex in the middle, I should see symmetry above and below, and I do. So I would be able to then just take the numbers directly from the calculator to either make my chart or just take them straight off the calculator and plot my points. And graph it. Okay? So there shouldn't be an issue with the graphing. Either build it quick myself or use the calculator. Should get me there. My axis of symmetry. X equals always going to be the x value of my vertex. But you've got to put the x equals. You can't just put equals negative 1. Because negative 1 is just a number. X equals negative 1 is a line. And that's what we're looking at there. Min or max. Look at your vertex. Is it the bottom or the top? It's at the bottom. It's a minimum. It's not a bad deal. And then domain and range. Domain is my x values from left to right. With parabolas, I don't have to think much. It's the same thing every time. It's infinite. So no worries there. My range. Now here's where I got to think for a minute. Bottom to top has to be in that order. Well, I see my top right away is going up forever. I can see the arrows. My bottom, though, doesn't go down forever. Oops, not negative 2, Harty. stops at 2. And I'm set. So if I just take my time a little bit with these, shouldn't be too big of a deal in getting there. Now 2, I'm not meaning to try and trick you, but it might, because this is actually also in vertex form. What? It doesn't look like vertex form. I see no parentheses. True. So here, the plus 3 is sort of like my plus 2 in this situation. So that's my K, but I don't see an H. I don't see any parentheses. That's going to be a 0. If you wanted to, we also could take a moment to just rewrite it in vertex form, if that makes me feel better. But basically what I'm telling you is, if it's a shortened version of this, okay, if I don't see parentheses there with my x, that basically is just going to be a 0. And the reason that I'll also see that, because let's say we get to the quiz and we're like, man, I don't know what to do with that. Okay, when in doubt, we'll get a little help. So let's say I can't figure out the vertex. I see the 3, I don't know what else is going on. So I punch it in here. I hit second graph. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of scrolling around, looking to see if I can find symmetry. So I'm looking and I'm going, okay, I'm starting to see some numbers that are the same. So I've got to be close. Oh, wait, did I go too far? Ooh, I see it. Okay. And when I go to the middle, I see my vertex, 0, 3, just like we'd figured out here, because I see the symmetry above and below. Well, the nice thing now is, shoot, I'm already here. Might as well just copy the numbers right out of the chart and use theirs instead of having to do it myself. So we don't want to make parts of this harder than we need to. 0, 3, 1, 1, 1. And I know it should be negative because my A value is negative, so it should be opening down. Negative 5, negative 5. We're good there. And now I'm basically just filling in my information from it. My axis is the x value of my vertex. This one opens down, which means my vertex is at the top. It's at the max. Domain's a no-brainer. Now, range, again, got to think a little bit. Bottom to top, it goes down forever. So it's going to start with negative infinity and goes to the top, which is 3. So you're like, okay, so vertex form, I get my vertex straight from the graph. I can use the chart on the calculator. I can make my own little chart with a couple of adjustments. Not too bad. So then we move into standard form. Now, how do I know it's standard form? A, I don't see any parentheses, and B, I now see an extra term in there with an x. So reminder of what this looks like. Because I'm going to need A, B, and C values. Because when we're in standard form, here comes our first reminder of our help that we have. You're like, yeah, that says min or max. Also helps me find the x value of my vertex. So, I look and I go, okay, my b value is 6, but I want the opposite of that. Over to A. Ew. This doesn't look like this is going to be fun. Negative 6 over 4. Harty, this isn't going to be decimally, is it? Maybe. Yep. We done got a decimal. All right. Okay, so here's the disadvantage this time. Because this happens sometimes in math. That just took one of my abilities kind of away from me. If I took the first two that we did, and I did nothing but use the chart, I just found myself a problem. There's no total symmetry in here. Like, this looks kind of close. Like, I see some 10s and some 2s and some negative 2s. And I could try to work with that, but it's going to kind of give me this lopsided look. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to this chart this time. It's still not going to be bad by any means. You're like, well, how am I going to get the y value of my vertex? Very simply stated, we are going to take, once I get the problem back down here, we're going to take our x value and we're going to plug it in. So 2, replace the x with negative 1.5 squared plus 6 times negative 1.5 plus 2. Get my vertex. You're like, okay, so now how am I supposed to get these other x values if I'm not going to use whole numbers? Another legitimate question, but let's think about it for a minute. If I were to start at negative 1.5, and I wanted 2 numbers to the left, what did we always do before when we were making our charts? We just kept subtracting 1, subtracting 1. We're going to do the exact same thing down here. So negative 1.5 minus 1. Okay, so negative 2.5, if I subtract another 1, negative 3.5. And then when I was going below that on the chart, when I was moving to the right, I was adding 1 each time. Negative 1.5 plus 1. And do it one more time. So it's not impossible. I'm not going to have a lot of work. And I've still got the calculator able to help me out. So, pick a value. Okay, I picked this 0.5. Plug in the x value. Again, I still got to be careful with, make sure I'm getting my squared there. And then do it for one of my ones with a little circle. So I'm just going to use negative 0.5 here. Did it take a little more time than just pulling it up on the chart? Yep. But I still get my symmetry? Absolutely. And again, graphing isn't going to be perfect on this, but we're going to get there. So negative 1.5, we're between negative 1 and negative 2. Negative 2.5. Then negative 1/2, negative 1/2. And negative 2.5, negative 1/2. And then 1/2. 5.5, negative 3.5, 5.5. So that's the type of question I'd be able to see right away if you're cranking this out yourself or if you're just going to put in lopsided values and go, I don't care, whatever. I'll care, but hopefully you will too. Axis of symmetry, x value of my vertex. Down at the bottom, got them in. Ooh, we have a new twist. The y-intercept, okay? 0, comma, which means what? Which means when x equals 0, what does y equal? Cool thing about 0, it wipes things out. 0 wipes that whole term out. 0, 6 times 0 wipes that whole term out. What's left? 2. Easy peasy. And then domain and range we've been talking about on all of them. Domain is infinite. Range goes from bottom. You're like, where exactly is that bottom at? Well, let's see. Where was my lowest point? It was at my vertex. So negative 2.5 and it goes up forever. Cool thing about this quiz, there's not a lot of problems, so I have plenty of time to be able to work on this stuff. And a lot of times it's going to come out nice anyway, so I'm not going to have too many concerns as I'm working through it. 4, we get a second chance at it to play with it. X value. Opposite of B over 2A. Now this time I'm about ready to do a cheer because the vertex X value is a whole number. Woo! So if I want, I'm going to be able to go straight to the calculator this time, and I'm going to get the help that I was hoping for on the last one. Now, if you've been a charter all along, you keep right on charting. But if you're like, yeah, when I can avoid it, I'm going to take the easier way out of things. So let's see. We need to get the 4 in the middle. So 4, negative 11 is my vertex. If to play it safe, we want to fill in our chart anyway. Not the worst idea ever. And I can go ahead and get that built in. And now I should be an expert at the rest of this stuff because I've been doing it all along. X value of my vertex is my axis. Vertex is at the bottom. It's a min. My y-intercept, plug in 0 for x, wipes out any x terms, 0, 5. Domain's always the same thing. And my range is my lowest point, which is my vertex y value on up. So the big key here is just to take our time with the info we know and start applying it a bit, okay? So that's our graphing on the front. When we flip over, the applications come into play. All right, so we'll still keep our yellow sheet close here. A ball is dropped from the top of a building. The distance in meters above the ground of the ball after t seconds can be modeled by the equation y equals negative 9.8 t squared plus 45. How long will it take for the ball to hit the ground? X-intercept. How high was the building you dropped the ball from? Now, we chatted about this yesterday some. I get 2 shots at getting this right. It can either be the y value of your vertex or your initial, I'm trying to think of the word that I used yesterday. What's that? No. I think it was initial, starting, it's something like that. Well, let's figure it out here in a minute. The word initial was in there. Wow, I'm going brain dead. I'm getting old. So I pull out my sheet and I go, okay. X-intercept. How long is it going to take for the ball to hit the ground? So I get my calculator out. Got to look at my equation here, and I'll get the yellow back up. Okay. So I take a peek at the graph of this. I go, okay, right there. That's what I'm looking for. That's how long it took. It looks like it's a little over 2 seconds. But again, I'm just going to follow my second trace. I want number 2. Move the coat. Okay, cursor, remember, left and right arrows only. Typically, if I start going right, I notice the y value is coming down, which is a good thing. Here it comes. Ooh, that's pretty good. Get as close to the x-intercept as I can. Yep. 3 left. 1, 2, 3. It's okay if it disappears from the screen. There's my first boundary with my arrow. 6, 1, 2, 3. Back at the start. 4, 5, 6. Enter. Arrows are pointing in. They're saying, ooh, we're narrowing in on the target. One last enter. 2.14 seconds. Which makes sense because when I looked at the graph, I said it's a little more than 2. So my answer is reasonable. I'm feeling okay with this. Okay. How high was the building you dropped the ball from? Okay, if we're looking for the easy way, we always like the easy way. My C value is always my initial starting place. Now, if I forget, because you're like, it's not on the yellow sheet, it doesn't say that, okay. Let's say we decide we're going to work through it to find the vertex. So I'd be like, okay, so let's see. Negative 9.8 t squared plus 45. A is negative 9.8. There is no t or x, so my b is 0. And my c would be 45. That's important because if I was deciding it was the maximum value of my vertex, I've got to do negative b over 2a, or opposite of b over 2a, and watch what happens. The opposite of 0 is still 0 over 2a. But I stop and look and I go, well, wait, though. Anything divided by 0, 0 divided by anything is 0. And if I plug that in for y, negative 9.80 squared plus 45, that all just goes away and gets me 45. So whether I look at it as it's the C value, or I actually do the vertex, I get to the same place. So it's like 2 ways to get where I'm trying to get to. So either one's fine, but just keep in mind, hit the ground, intercept. How high? Okay, how long did it take to get to the highest point, or x values? And we're going to see that again here in a minute. For each function, find the y-intercept, x equals 0. Straightforward enough as plug 0 in for x. I can plug that directly into the calculator. I don't have to be a hero here. Now here's where I do have to do this and make sure I do it right. Don't write y equals 7 as the answer. Why not? Y equals 7 is a horizontal line. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a coordinate point. They told me what x equals. I calculated what y equals. It's a coordinate point. If you don't get the coordinate point, you're not going to get credit. Okay? Because an intercept is a coordinate point. I guess I should do this even. 0, y. And that's all I really have to do for this. Same as what we did up above. If I plug in zeros for x's, anything with 0 in it that's being multiplied cancels out. And just leaves me with the c value. But again, have it be a coordinate. Simple, make it simple, make it simple. And then one last app. The equation gives us the height of the ball in feet above the ground at t seconds after the ball is thrown upward. How many seconds after the ball is thrown will it reach its maximum height? What is the maximum height? Okay, here's what I got to keep straight. Okay, I see maximum, maximum. Maximum. So, things around here. X equals, here's my b, opposite of b, over 2a. Again, do the pieces of x separately. Multiply the bottoms together first, then divide. My x. Then to get my y, I just plug the 1 in the variables are at. And then I'm going to talk to you about how I can easily tell which number goes in which blank here. And I'm assuming we're probably going to type that in the calculator. So you're like, okay, how am I supposed to tell? Here's how. Think about your standard form of an equation for a minute. I'm going to put it right above the equation here. You're like, okay, what good does that do me? Check out what you see. Y is in the same place as H is. Okay. This is H. This is my height. 21 feet. Okay. Where's X at in both of these? The same place T is. T stands for time. 1 second. These all have interconnections. Once we get using them and practicing with them, it makes it a lot simpler. So my advice is this. If you still have any of that stuff left from the homework check, because we did a lot of this, go back. If there's some you haven't done, do them. Take pictures of the keys, check answers, or grab another one of these and practice it on your own like you're taking a quiz. But do not walk into tomorrow having done no homework. This is all you've done the whole time and then wonder, I don't get why I don't get it. I'll tell you why you don't get it. You didn't practice enough to know what you're doing. Again, at least currently for the year we are speaking during this video, this is legal to use, but notice, no other writing on here. Don't you have any other writing on here? If you do, get a fresh one, because no writing on them for use on the quiz. And with that, I'm out.